Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio from Boise, Idaho. This is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, send it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter @Radio Detectives, and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. Before we do get started, today's episode is brought to you by the financial support of our listeners. Thanks so much for your support. You can support the show at support.greatdetectives.net. Well, it's time now for today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. It's the Meg's Palace Matter, parts 3 and 4.
From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar.
Mr. Dollar?
Oh, listen, it's after midnight, and I don't feel
This
so
is
good.
Tim Beasley. I want to talk to you.
Oh, the oh-so-very uncooperative mayor, chief of police, and general do-nothing in this town.
Now, just a minute.
Now, you just a minute. I asked you for help this afternoon in finding out who's threatening to put Meg McCarthy in a restaurant out of business.
Dollar.
What do I get? A snide warning from you that the people of Cod Harbor don't want outsiders messing in their affairs. Well, I don't believe it.
If you'll only listen to me, I want to help you.
Then why weren't you here a little while ago when somebody slugged me?
I was.
What?
Who do you think picked you up in that alley and put you to bed at Meg's place?
You?
You want to come over here and talk to me now? I know it's late.
Okay, Beasley. If my head stops spinning long enough, I'll be right over.
Tonight, and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. From Special Investigator Johnny Dollar, location, Cod Harbor, Massachusetts. To the Intercoastal Maritime and Life Insurance Company, Boston. Assignment, the Meg's Palace Matter. Expense account continued. Expense account? Well, so far here in Cod Harbor, there's been little need for it. Meg McCarthy had given me a small room above a restaurant and provided all the food I could eat. My own 2 feet were the only means of transportation. The only shops were along the waterfront, but they were suppliers to the boats tied up at the various docks. And a motley lot of boats they were. Some were big schooners dating back to the last century and still carrying sail. There were power boats of all shapes and sorts and sizes, from 18-footers with one-lung gasoline engines to big 60- and 70-foot diesel jobs. Trouble of the sort I'd come to investigate seemed out of place in this otherwise peaceful little village.
Come in, Mr. Dollar.
So, you've suffered a change of heart, huh, Beasley? And you've decided to cooperate.
Yeah, that's about the best way to put it, I guess. See, it's
Now,
this
wait,
way.
wait. Before we go any further, what was this bit about picking me up after I got socked on the head a while ago?
Listen, Mr. Dollar, after you left here this afternoon, I got to thinking. Maybe I was wrong in giving you the back of my hand, and maybe you was right in walking out mad like you did.
Well, how would you feel? The insurance company back in Hartford gets word from Meg McCarthy that somebody's threatening to burn up that joint on the waterfront she calls a restaurant. It's insured for $15,000, and she's insured for $25,000.
I know. Well, you see, it's this way.
And when I get here, I learn that somebody has already tried a couple of times to set fire to the place. All right. I learned a long time ago that in a case like this, it's smart to enlist the help of the local authorities. Here in Cod Harbor, those authorities all seem to boil down to you. Why, I will never know.
Yeah, like I told you. But now listen.
And what do I get from you? The cold shoulder, the back of your hand, as you put it.
I gotta explain to you, Mr. Dollar.
Well, then go ahead and explain, and believe me, brother, it better be good.
Well, there probably ain't another village like this in the whole country, see? Technically, we're supposed to be part of Barnesboro, a few miles inland. But we've always left them alone, and they've always left us alone. Any trouble happens, we settle it amongst ourselves. And because we're such a small place, it's get along with everybody or get out, see? So we just don't have no trouble. Not of any account, that is. Unless it's somebody comes in from outside and makes it for us. You understand, Mr. Dollar?
Are you forgetting it was one of your own townspeople who asked me to come here, and for her own protection?
That's what I got to thinking about after you left. So I decided maybe I better talk to you. And, well, that's how I happened to go over to Meg's place tonight.
Was that you I saw in the shadows out by the front door?
Yes, sir. I was waiting for Captain Billy Morgan and his crew to finish cleaning up the place for Meg. And I was going to go in and talk to you. And that's the truth, Mr. Dollar.
Go on.
Well, I just got there when I heard a noise out at the side of the cafe like a fight. Of course, it was dark.
There was no fight. Somebody came out the side door from behind me and knocked me on the head.
Yeah. So I took you up and put you on your bed and gave you time to get your senses back and then telephoned to you.
Uh-huh. You sure it was you out at the front of the cafe?
Oh, no, Mr. Dollar. You trying to implicate maybe it was me that give you a belaying pin over the head?
Was that what hit me, Beasley? A belaying pin?
Well, something hit you and I just...
Okay, I'll take your word it wasn't you, for the time being.
I swear, Mr. Dollar, by all...
All right, then, listen.
Yeah?
I heard that side door open just before I started seeing stars.
Huh? Yeah?
That means whoever struck me must have come from inside the cafe.
Say.
Yeah, that's right. The only people inside were Captain Morgan and the crew of his fishing boat.
You sure?
I'm sure, because I was in there myself just a minute before. Just Billy Morgan and his 3 men.
Where was Meg?
She'd gone up to bed. I just stepped outside for a breath of air.
Ole?
Huh?
Ole Jensen, first mate.
Yeah, I heard Captain Billy call one of them Ole. Last name's Jensen, huh?
And then there's Charlie. Charlie Buttons, the deckhand, and Montgomery, the engineer.
Well?
No, not one of them could have done it.
Isn't that like saying I didn't get hit? One of them must have done it.
No, sir, Mr. Dollar, it just couldn't make any sense.
All right, tell me this. Are any of them related to the guys who run the other cafes along the wharf?
No.
But you are, aren't you, Beasley?
Huh?
To Clem Harris at the Silver Plate, or is it the Greasy Plate? Anyway, he's your cousin, isn't he?
Oh, I told you that. But if you think he had anything...
Right now, I don't know what I think. Well, let me tell you this. If you have suffered this big change of heart, it's about time you started proving it.
I'll do anything you say, Mr. Dollar.
All right. Meg seems to think the threats and attempts to burn down her place came from her competitors.
Well, I know she does, but she's...
Now, in a couple of hours, I'm taking off for the fishing banks with Captain Morgan and his crew. Maybe I'll be able to spot which of his men laid me out in the alley, if it was one of them. Meantime, you see if you can dig up anything that would put a finger at the other cafe owners. That means Ernie at the Manor House, Tony who runs Irving's Chop Suey joint, and your cousin, Clem Harris.
Okay, Mr. Dollar. I'll do it.
Hey, by the way, did you ever check their handwriting against the letters Meg received?
Well, no, I never quite got around to it.
I don't think you ever got around to doing anything.
But it's such an easy job.
Well, do it. Get the letters from Meg and check them.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to try to get a couple hours sleep before we take off on the Lily Ann.
Yes, sir.
The big lazy slob. The first time I met him, he'd actually boasted about his soft job. About how nicely he could live in the town without having to lift a finger. Oh, sure, the sudden change of heart may have been genuine, but I wouldn't have bet on it. And I still had no proof it wasn't he who slugged me. And one of Meg's rival eateries was run by his cousin. But then everything indicated that whoever struck me had come from inside her own cafe. So I decided it was more important than ever that I go on the next day's fishing trip. Back at my room on the second floor of Meg's palace, I fell asleep the minute my head hit the pillow. And I could have sworn it was only a second later that... Yeah. Oh, who is it? What is it?
Time to get up and out. What do you think it is?
Huh?
Who, you're going out with the boys. Just get them lazy bones of yours up out of that bed.
But it's still pitch dark.
Are you decent? Well, whether you are or whether you ain't, it's time you was up. Here's the light for you.
Oh, turn that thing off.
Now, here's some coffee. Take a saucer or two. It'll choke you. It's that strong, but it'll wake... Johnny boy, what happened to you?
Oh, just what it looks like.
But your head...
Somebody just got real friendly with a belaying pin right after you went to bed.
They come up here and attacked you?
No, it was outside, out by the side door.
I'll kill whoever done that to you, Johnny boy. So help me, I'll find out who done that. You sure you want to get up and go out to the banks? Maybe you'd...
No, I'll be all right. And I think it's pretty important I go out with Captain Billy and his boys. Because I have a sneaking suspicion one of them may have done this.
Why, them dirty, conniving... Oh, no, Johnny, you must be wrong.
Oh?
Why, don't you know, darling, that's the finest crew of men in all of Cod Harbor.
I'm not so sure.
But then you mean you think one of them could also be behind trying to burn me down? And maybe me with it?
You can be mighty sure I'm going to try to find out.
Oh, Johnny boy, I pray that you're thinking wrong. Anyhow, if you're going with them, well, up and out with you. By the time you're in your clothes, I'll have some grits on the table for you. Eggs and pork chops and donuts and jam, hot cakes.
I met the crew of the Lily Ann at that breakfast. Breakfast? Considering the amount of food set before them and the way they piled into it, you'd think those 4 men hadn't eaten for a month. And I must confess, there was nothing about them that looked like cause for suspicion. First there was Charlie, a tall, brown-eyed, husky young fellow, alert and pleasant, with a sense of humor, and he was obviously liked by the others.
I don't know, Mr. Dollar. I think you just got to dreaming about some nice, pretty gal, and when you reached out and tried to grab her, you fell out of bed, and that's the way you got banged up.
Montgomery, a bit older, the man who was responsible for the engines on the boat. Gray-haired, lean, wiry, with gnarled fingers that looked clumsy and somehow never made a clumsy move, whose blue eyes looked straight at you when he spoke.
Don't you believe it? And you can blow me down, Mr. Dollar, if that ain't the most dastardly thing I ever heard of here in Cod Harbor. Now, you best stick close to us that's your friends whilst you're here. I say, friends of Meg McCarthy be friends of us.
Then Ollie Jensen, first mate, the oldest member of the crew. Quiet, calm, and efficient. The soft-spoken one.
It's not for me to inquire why you're here. What business you're about, Mr. Dollar, and I don't. But I'm certain it's for the good. And any help that we can give you, you're welcome, sir.
Sure, yeah.
And I say the devil with all this chitter and chatter when there's fish at sea for you to catch, you lazy lunkers. Get up from that table and get to work. By the time the sun's up, the fish will all be at your reach.
Within a few minutes, we cast off, and the Lily Ann put to sea. Slowly, the lights of the little village disappeared aft. The moon had gone down, and our only company out on the dark water was the twinkling stars and the occasional running lights from the other boats setting out for the fishing banks. Captain Billy Morgan stood at the wheel. Montgomery sat athwart the engine cover and occasionally made some slight adjustment or indicated a change of throttle to the captain. Young Charlie and Ole made ready the 2 small boats and trot lines. For today, we'd go for codfish in the deep that lay along the edge of Taylor Banks. I stood alone up in the bows, looking over the curling wash as it scattered the myriad microscopic beings and gave a soft phosphorescent glow to the water gliding past. And I wondered why there had to be trouble in this world, where honest labor by honest men could do so much more. Honest men? No, not even among this crew. One of them had to be the man who'd attacked me. Was probably the one who had threatened to burn Meg McCarthy out of business. So I'd better have at it. I'd better get back aft, talk with them, watch their every move, try somehow to trap one of them into saying something that would give them away. Or maybe, who knows, give all of them away. And above all, watch my step. There was a long way back to shore. And the darkness and the sound of the engines could all too easily cover up an untoward act by one of them. It did. Before I could lift my head, a powerful pair of arms had picked me up bodily and dropped me overside. In the brief moment that I remember, I felt the strong tug from the big propellers as the water closed over me, then a terrible blow against my side. Then nothing.
Now, here's our star to tell you about tomorrow's episode of this week's story.
Tomorrow, the motives for arson and murder begin to take definite shape in the form of a confession. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. It is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone, who also wrote this week's story. Be sure to join us tomorrow night, same time and station, for the next exciting episode of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking. From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar.
Dr. Lionel Champion here, Mr. Dollar.
Who?
I'm surprised Meg McCarty didn't answer. I ordered her to keep you in bed there at her place until I could see you again.
I am in bed. And I take it you're the doctor who bandaged me up this way, put on this splint.
That's right.
After I tangled with the propeller of Captain Morgan's fishing boat this morning.
Yes, only it was yesterday.
Huh?
You were unconscious when the captain and his men brought you in. After treating you, I gave you sedation.
Oh.
Rest was the most important thing. How did you ever happen to fall off that boat?
Fall? Doctor, I was pushed.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. From Special Investigator Johnny Dollar, location Cod Harbor, Massachusetts, to the Intercoastal Maritime and Life Insurance Company, Boston. Assignment, the Meg's Palace matter. Report and expense account continued. As soon as I hung up on Dr. Champion, I again checked the splint on my right leg and confirmed the suspicion that I couldn't possibly walk on it. Then, a few minutes later, Meg McCarthy came into my room. She carried a tray filled with enough food to choke a horse. And while I piled into it, she brought me up to date.
It's in Barnesboro that Dr. Champion has his office. And lucky it was for you he happened to be here in Cod Harbor on his weekly visit. Oh, you were a sorry-looking mess when the men brought you in.
Yesterday, the doctor said.
You've been out as cold as a codfish ever since. But I can tell by the looks that the rest has done a lot for you. How do you feel?
No matter of fact, Meg, I feel pretty pretty good.
There, you see, you've got to take it easy, like the doctor said. Just lay there and rest and sleep and eat all the good food I bring you.
Yeah, except and unless I get up and going on this case.
You try that and I'll lash you to the bedpost. Doctor's orders is doctor's orders, so don't you try nothing different.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, it's a miracle, praise be, that propeller on the Lily Ann didn't cut you to ribbons.
Captain Billy and his crew brought me back here, huh?
Who else?
Where are they now?
Fishing out on the banks, of course. What did you expect? Don't you know they have to earn a living the same as me and you? And what about keeping up the payments on that seagoing bathtub? Precious little time they had for fishing yesterday after that fool trick you pulled falling off of her.
Is that what they told you happened?
Of course, what else?
Meg, which of the men told you I'd fallen off the boat?
Well, all of them. Only the first mate, young Charlie Montgomery, the engineer, and, of course, my Willie by himself, Captain Morgan, to you.
And they all told it the same way?
What, why not? Should they be after making up fairy tales?
How did they tell it?
You're sure that screw didn't hit you on the head, too? You lost your memory?
How did they tell it, Meg? It's important.
Well, whilst they went about their chores, you were standing alone up in the bows. Then they heard you yell.
Yeah?
Despite of the darkness, they seen you splash in the phosphorescent wake. And there you were, being sucked under by the prop. That's all.
And they all told it the same?
Exactly the same. Even young Charlie Buttons kept saying it over and over. I saw it all.
Oh?
Like he was still struck with the fear of what might have happened to you.
I wonder.
Well, stop wondering and get yourself some more sleep, or the doctor'll have me hid. And if he does, I'll take it out on you. And believe me, Johnny boy, that will be a lot worse than the fool accident of yours ever was.
Meg, listen to me. It was no accident.
What?
I was thrown overboard.
Oh, Oh, Johnny boy, you're raving delirious out of your head.
I was leaning over the rail, watching the water, and a powerful pair of arms belonging to somebody aboard that boat picked me up and tossed me over.
Saints... Who?
Ole Jensen, young Charlie Buttons, Montgomery, or Captain Billy himself.
You start raving, Johnny. You must have got hit on the head.
And I'll bet my last buck that whoever did it is the same one who slugged me in the alley, the same one who's threatened to burn you out of this place of yours.
Oh, no.
And the minute I get up out of this bed, Tell me something.
Yes?
Tim Beasley, your police chief and mayor and so on.
Yes?
Has he been up here to see you?
That good-for-nothing blatherskite, no. And what's more, if he shows his ugly face in my establishment, I'll toss him out on his beam ends. But why do you ask?
Because I told him to get the threatening notes from you. Check them against the handwriting of several people here in Cod Harbor.
Who? Like that sniveling cousin of his, Clem Harris, that runs the Silver Plate Cafe?
Yeah, among others.
Well, he ain't been here, and I won't have him here.
I take it you and he don't get along.
Of course we don't.
Why?
Because ever since his cousin Clem has been in business, Tim has threatened to close me up.
For what reason?
For breaking town ordinances on restaurants. The kind he enforces over to Barnesboro.
Well, have you been breaking them?
No more than no less than dear cousin Clem or Tony 14 or Ernie Turner does after their harsh joints. But me, he always is picking on, and why? Because I get most of the business from the fishermen. So you want a suspect in this case, Johnny boy?
You've named them for me, Meg. The other cafe owners.
All right, so I'll give you one. Tim Beasley and Clem Harris working in cahoots. And if it wasn't one of them waylaid you in the alley...
Whoa, wait a minute. Neither of them could have been aboard the Lily Ann.
Then you must have fell.
Oh, Meg, when is the doctor coming to see me?
He should be here by now.
Well, if he doesn't come pretty soon, I'm getting up and going, orders or no orders.
Johnny?
Motives, suspects... Why, Meg McCarthy herself could have rigged this whole thing. Called me in as a cover-up while she burned up her place to collect $15,000 insurance. Even her intended, Captain Billy Morgan, who'd collect her life insurance if she were to die in a fire. Tim Beasley, lazy slob of a general factotum in Cod Harbor, to put Meg's palace out of business on behalf of his cousin, Clem Harris. Or Clem himself. Or one of Captain Billy's crew for some reason I hadn't yet fathomed. Half an hour later, Dr. Champion arrived, looked me over, and then went to work with a pair of bandage shears.
So now we'll take off that splint.
Oh, but if something's broken, Doc.
Not a thing broken, Mr. Dollar. Just an old trick of mine.
Huh?
You needed absolute rest until I could see you again. And from what I've heard about you, you wouldn't have taken it unless I fooled you into it. And that was the sole reason for the splint.
Doc, you're a wonder.
There we are. And in view of your surprisingly good condition, I'd say you may be up and around as soon as you honestly feel able. Say, even tomorrow, perhaps.
Item 8, $10 for medical services. All the Dr. Champion would accept. Needless to say, as soon as he left, I planned to get up and get to work. But as he walked out the door, Meg brought Captain Billy in to visit and sympathize. So, in hope of keeping him off guard, I played real sick. Then Ole and Montgomery came in, too. But I needed to get these men alone, and I must admit, be feeling better than I did. And then I realized that young Charlie hadn't come. I asked about him.
To Barnesboro, Johnny. He said as long as the doctor was keeping you in bed 2 or 3 days, he could see you when he gets back.
But wait a minute.
He went to pick up some supplies for Meg here like he always does. Gives him a chance to drop in on his sister where he keeps his Sunday clothes and things.
He wasn't out on the boat with you today?
Meg spoils a lad that way, always has him going in for supplies when I need him the most.
Look here now, Willie boy. You talk like I was the one picked today.
Well, of course you did.
Of
You always
course
do.
I didn't, and don't you tell me. He said it was you.
You're off your course, Miss McCarthy. You know blasted well that you are.
Don't you shake your finger at me, you blue
You pipe down, woman. Do you want Mr. Dollar to have a relapse?
You. Oh, Johnny boy. I'm sorry. Shut up, Bill.
It's okay, Meg.
And
but
Willie
tell me
boy. I'm sorry if I seem to be raising my voice at you.
Oh, bless you, Meg. It's that fiery spirit that keeps me loving you. Yeah, but now, why don't we leave the poor man alone to recover, huh? Come on, boys.
Yes, come on, all of you. Out you go.
After you, Meg.
Oh,
After
my,
you.
how polite we are.
Montgomery, wait.
Oh, Mr. Dollar, something I can do for you to ease your bed of pain? A little drink or something? I've a bottle aboard the Lily Ann.
No, thanks. I want to talk to you about Charlie.
A real fine lad he is. Now, I'm sure he'll be wanting to see you when he gets back from his visit in town.
No, wait. Captain Morgan said he has a sister in Barnesboro. Do you know the address?
Oh, that I do. Many's a fine meal we've had from her on our time off.
Well, I want to see her. just a little personal thing.
Oh, then here, I'll write down the address for you. She lives in a pretty little house on the corner of Rosewood and
Maybe Montgomery was the wrong one to ask. I don't know. But I had to gamble somewhere along the line. And if my suspicions about Charlie Buttons was right, I hoped I wouldn't be too late. When Montgomery had left, I sneaked out the back door to avoid Meg and hurried over to Tim Beasley's office in the shack that functioned as Cod Harbor City Hall. He wasn't there. A woman who lived next door informed me he'd taken off in a hurry to Barnesboro. So Beasley had gone to town after Charlie. Or had he? For $25, that's item 9, I rented a creaky old truck and headed for Barnesboro. Charlie's sister's house was on a gravel road out on the edge of town. There was no other car there, so I stopped in front of the place, got out, and walked up to the front door.
Sorry, mister, but my sister... Mr. Dollar.
Hello, Charlie.
Yeah, I meant to say, why didn't you come in? Sure glad to see you're all right, Mr. Dollar.
Are you?
That sure was awful. You're falling off the boat that way.
What's the matter, Charlie? Aren't you feeling good?
Yeah, sure. Sure I am.
You look a little pale. And say... Well... Packing up to leave, huh?
Yeah, Well, I'm tired of the fishing business, Mr. Dollar. Gonna give it up. Go somewhere else to earn a living. Tired of it, yeah.
Why did you do it, Charlie?
Huh? I don't know what you mean.
It took somebody who knew that boat pretty well to sneak up on me in the dark and push me overboard. Took a strong, young pair of arms to do it, too. Yours, weren't they? Well...
I didn't want to do it, Mr. Dollar. So help me, I didn't want to. But he made me.
Yeah? Who made you?
He found out. He found out about me, about my record.
What record?
That I'd killed a man once, accidentally, when I was just a kid. And I'd run out and escaped from the reformatory. But now I'm grown. If they ever catch me, they'll hang me or the electric chair up for life, and he knew that.
Charlie.
If I didn't do anything he said, like slugging you or trying to start the fires or anything, he'd give me away. So I had to, don't you see? I couldn't help myself. He made me do everything.
Charlie, who, Charlie, who?
It's all right. You don't need to rough me up, Dollar. I knew I'd get caught up with someday. I'll go quiet with you. And maybe you'll help to try and get things easy for me.
Charlie, who made you try to kill me?
Yeah, I'll tell you. It was so he could get you out of the way and burn up Meg's palace and her with it. I'll tell you, Mr. Dollar, it was... Oh, no.
Huh?
There. At the window. Behind you.
That old trick? Oh, no, you...
Help!
The boy fell against me, pinning me to the floor. And as I pushed him away, I saw the patch of red slowly spreading on the front of his shirt directly above the heart. By the time I got to the window, a car had taken off down the old gravel road and was completely obscured by a thick cloud of dust. And I wondered for whom the shot that killed Charlie had really been intended.
Now, here's our star to tell you about the final episode of this week's story.
Tomorrow, a killer strikes again. But one of his victims rises from the grave to strike back. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. It is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone, who also wrote this week's story. Be sure to join us tomorrow night, same time and station, for the next exciting episode of Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
Welcome back. Well, I have a good idea who did it now, but that may also just be me remembering, or I could be from when I've heard this before. But an interesting case, some pretty good characterization, and a lot of dialects, The only one that really didn't work, I think, was the Ole one. But they may also have been trying to avoid overdoing it, which often happens in old-time radio programs where the attempt to do that accent just goes totally over the top. I also love the cliffhanger for part 3. It was kind of a shame the way we set the show up that we go right into part 4. At any rate, on to listener comments and feedback, and I have this from Arthur, who actually I mentioned him as supporting the show on Tuesday, but forgot to read his message. He says, we listen every night, so thanks for the podcast. And also says, bought your book for my Kindle. I read it, and kudos to you. Well, thanks so much, Arthur. Really do appreciate the comment, and appreciate everyone who supports the show, and also people who purchase and enjoy the various books we have out there for the Kindle. All right, well, that will do it for today. We will be back with you on Thursday with Nick Carter, and then we will wrap this case up on Friday. So be sure and listen to that. In the meantime, send your comments to box13@greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives, and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.